Trump and Republicans have unleashed economic chaos, but the silver lining for some has been the assumption that they would pay for this in the midterms and afterwards. If that is to become a reality, there's a lot of work to be done still. Here's CNN pollster Harry Enten explaining that situation.
You expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. Plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me? If it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points.
It is almost unbelievable that those numbers are real. And I say almost because we have to remember who is countering them. Most elected Democrats couldn't message their way out of a wet paper bag, and the few that can are sidelined by the party. That brings us into the longer term that Harry Enten identified that Democrats need to focus on more than anything else. Take a look.
Historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989 when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022 where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else.
We've got more, but Trae, I want to bring you in here because I think you would offer a unique perspective. Now, I think you and I are both in agreement that of the two parties, the Democrats generally would be the better representative of the working class. Mm-hmm. But having spent time in red areas, mm-hmm. knowing what a hotbed of conservatism looks like, what do you think has led to this shift where people have now see the parties as equal, as representing the middle class?
I mean, I think at least this is anecdotal and personal, but I'll tell you about my own family and I'll try to make it brief. But I actually grew up in a family of Southern Democrats, including my grandparents and everything. And they were all small business owners in a very tiny, rednecky Tennessee town. And my grandpa owned a car lot in a garage, and my dad owned a video store, and my uncle owned a deli and all this stuff. And in the mid-90s, after NAFTA, the factory in our town, the big factory that was the beating heart of my hometown's economy, shut down and left and went to Mexico, went overseas, and then nothing ever came in to replace it. And it's been pure economic desolation for 25 years there, 30 years now at this point. And by the time I graduated high school in 2004, all my family's businesses were closed. My grandpa was dead. My mom was on pills, all this nasty stuff. And I remember vivid memory of my grandpa, a lifelong Democrat, around 1996 or so, or 97, the time this was all happening, the factory was leaving. I was sitting in my dad's video store at the counter, and my grandpa walked in holding a newspaper, and he slammed the newspaper on the counter, and he goes, "I'll never vote for another Democrat as long as I live." And he didn't live all that much longer, but that's, I feel where it started, and then it's only gotten worse in recent years with propaganda about it. It goes beyond just economic stuff and middle class stuff. It's they think that Democrats are drinking babies' blood and whatnot, and they really do believe that, and it's insane. And I don't know what to do about it. I just made one of my silly little videos that I do yesterday, kind of about this, where it was directed at people in my town or my fellow rural Americans, working class rural Americans, where I was you know what? Forget put the Democrats out of that. I'm not even talking about them. Screw them. They don't care about you. Whatever. Explain to me why you still believe in the Republicans at this point. They've been running the show in rural America for 25 years now, and how the hospitals have closed. More about to close. They're trying to close schools down. Grocery stores are going to be shuttered before long if the big beautiful bill goes through. It's screw the Democrats. Explain to me why you still believe in these people after all this. And that's the part that's even crazier for me. That's hard for me to understand. It's like, okay, I can wrap my head around why you're so antagonistic towards the Democratic Party. Again, I wish that we could salve a lot of those, concerns and sort of right the ship on that. But even putting that aside, I don't get why you're still sold on the right, though. And so there's just a lot. It's a big problem with a lot of seriously deep-seated causes. And it's a massive undertaking to try to begin to undo it. But I hope people can start to figure it out, because it's bad. It's bad.
I resonate with a lot of your comments. You're talking about the impact of NAFTA on your communities. It was the same thing in mine. I grew up in Ohio and in the middle of the Rust Belt. And you watched as all of these manufacturing jobs left the area. The jobs got shipped overseas as a result of NAFTA. And post-industrial America has been decimated by these types of policies. And it wasn't so much that the problem was inherent with Democrats. It was that Bill Clinton and Democrats at the time were trying to do a Republican light, which I think goes to your other point. Like, how do you still believe in this party? Because they are the torchbearers for this type of economic thinking. These are the ones who are trying to cut Medicaid right now. These are the ones that, like you're saying, could close rural hospitals, could kick people off a SNAP. The consequences could be devastating and in many cases can result in death. Why is that the party you think of? And I was, as I've been thinking about this problem overall, I'm reminded of comments that Tim Walz recently made at the South Carolina Democratic Convention over the weekend, where he's saying, look, you don't have to like what Donald Trump does, and we don't, and he is reckless, but he is doing things. And in a city that is so plagued by gridlock and inaction, that can be enough for many voters to think, well, he gets stuff done without understanding the consequences. And how do you feel about that line of thinking?
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement with you. In some of the same articles about these polls that we started this segment talking about, there was also some questions on there about like which party is more likely to get things done, which party takes all that type of stuff. And I was sitting there reading, it's like, I've been a Democrat my whole life. They drive me crazy, but I'm still gonna vote for them generally. And if I was polled by this, I would answer the Republicans on those, like which one is more like, because it's like, I don't get me wrong, I hate and am terrified of all the things that the Trump administration has been doing. But they've been doing a lot of stuff. And, I'm 39 and in my entire life as an American, that's always been the main rub on both sides is that at the end of the day, they don't really do all that much or get anything done. And you can't say that about this administration. I don't care how much you dislike it. Objectively speaking, they're doing stuff. And like you said, to a lot of people that just reads as, effectiveness or strength, So, I mean, yeah, I'm with you. And that's also concerning. The Democrats are just so feckless and ineffective, for so long that it's hard for people to have faith in them.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of bad news we just went over here, but let's close with some optimism. Despite narrowly favoring Republicans whose sole mission is to cut every single social safety net program, Americans are hungry for action like we're talking about. Most Americans now say the government should do more to solve problems. Some people think the government is trying to do too many things that should be left to individuals and businesses. Others think the government should do more to solve our country's problems, which comes closer to your own view. And you see an upward trend in government should do more to solve problems. And I think this, Trae, could be the opportunity for Democrats to distinguish themselves from Republicans. As we know, and as we've seen, Trump's big, beautiful bill exacerbates many of these problems. They might support, people in his base might support it now, but when they lose their Medicaid, when they lose their SNAP, and there's nothing they can do about it, they're going to realize this was a problem that was made worse by the Republican Party. That's an opportunity, I think, for the Democrats to come in with clear, strong messaging to link the two, on top of all of the tax cuts for billionaires. Because I think across the board, no matter which political party you're in, you can recognize there is a wealth disparity. To what extent might vary based on where you are in terms of your ideology, but many Americans now recognize there is a problem with wealth disparity. So if they can effectively message that point, I think that could be helpful going into the midterms. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the best opportunity they currently have in front of them. I don't know how much faith I have in their ability to do that, but I hope that they can prove me wrong and pull it together. It certainly seems like an area of opportunity. But this is a weird. It's not a divergence. There's another anecdote I'd wanted to share during this segment because it's relevant to it. And so, since we're about to get out of here on this whole subject, I've been very pessimistic this entire segment. Having said that, I was just in my hometown that I talked about earlier, where my uncle still lives. I was there last week, and he told me a story. And I think this actually really goes more towards the why are you still on board? The Republicans upsetting people or worrying people than it does the Democrats reaching people. But either way, my uncle during the first Trump administration, he was the co-chair of the Clay County Democratic Party, right? It was him, his co-chair, and they had 3 members. So there's 5 people total, right? In my home county. This is in 2017, 2018. They still went to meetings and did their thing or whatever through the Biden administration. In like 2022, even the 5 people left weren't showing up and whatever. So they basically like disbanded the Clay County Democratic Party in like 2022 or 2023. I was there last week, and he told me the week before that his co-chair from before had called him and was like, how about we just try to get the band back together. Like, feels like we should do something. Let's try to have another meeting. Things are so crazy. So they had the first meeting in 2 or 3 years of the Clay County Democratic Party, and they announced it or whatever. And he showed up at the courthouse where they were doing it on a Sunday afternoon, and he said there was like 37 people there. So, that's like a 600% increase from what it had been before in the first time back. And I don't know what that means. It may mean nothing, but I can tell you that my hometown is like hardcore MAGA country, as evidenced by their previous numbers. So, he's very encouraged by it, obviously, and they're going to keep going. So I don't know what it means, but I hope that it means something.